Okay, so the recording has started. I will share that later again as well. So basically, tonight and then on Saturday morning, we're just going to do prep work for your exam that is next week. So I just thought what I will do is I will go through an exam paper from about 2 or 3 years ago, um, and we can work through that paper um, as a means to prepare you for your exam. I think next week, Tuesday, if I'm correct. But so we'll have a session tonight, and then the other one is going to be on Saturday morning. But I will post that later into the chat as well. Okay, let me just want to post the attendance register that you can just fill in during the session. It is in the chat, the link. Okay, so let's get started. Basically, this is how your exam will look like. So it is a very good example of what you will get in the exam. Also, what I think it is important is that if there's things that you see that you're struggling with in the next day or two, that you can also let me know, and maybe we can squeeze in some time. I know it's already on Tuesday that you're right, but maybe we can squeeze in half an hour or something if there is something that you nearly really need assistance with. Okay, so the first question that we're gonna work through is basically looking at straight lines. So it is the first part of your study units, and basically what they tell us is a line cuts the x-axis at 4, and cuts through a point 2 and 4. And then they ask you to work out what the equation of that line is. Okay, so if I just quickly draw something like that. Okay, so first it says it cuts the line at 4, so let's say cuts the line at 4, and then at point 2 and 4, so let's say somewhere there, it goes through that line. Okay, so basically we can say draw a line through there. It will be going through that space. So if I look at these options and you just look at that line, okay, so this means it's a straight line through a half. We're not going through a half, so actually it is not that one. If I look at this one, so we could have said +0 so that you can get what the C is. It's definitely not going through the origin, so it's definitely not that. If I look at this line, it's supposed to then cut the y-axis somewhere there. So I actually could have already eliminated that. So without nearly working out too much, I could actually already get to that answer. But let's follow the principles here as well. So the information that they give me, I can use firstly in where I have the straight line. So the information they give me, I can work out that m or that slope. So remember, slope is the change in y over the change in x. So here I have the change in y. So let's use that point. So remember that point is 2 and 4. This point is 4 and 0. Okay, so change in y is 4 minus 0. The change in x is 2 minus 4. So basically I have 4 over 2, which is minus 2. So my slope is minus 2. So that could have also given you that one. So when I have the slope as minus 2, I put it into the formula. And then now I sit with that. So I can use any one of those 2 points to put back into the formula to calculate C. So let's use the 2 and the 4 because that's what they gave us. So we know it was 4 was minus 2 times 2 plus C. So C would have been 4 on that side, minus 2 times 2 on this side is minus 4. So if I take that across, it will become 8. So in the end, the formula would have been minus 2x plus 8, which was then option 3. Okay, for the guys joining us, we're working through exam paper of 2020. So basically today and Saturday morning, we will be just going through this so that you can get prep in for your exam next week. Okay, so this first one, after I've drawn the graph, we could have probably already eliminated some of the answers, but still I think it's important that we just have done the rest of the way of working it out if there was multiple options. Okay, so that was a straight line. They give you a point, they give you actually 2 points, and you need to draw that. Okay, so what I think it's very good to now see that how it now works in the exam as well is you start off with a question that's from study unit 2 or whatever, and then it jumps to another study unit. So just be prepared for it, that it might be that they start off with a very difficult question, just to nearly catch you off guard. So okay, so for this one, there's again ways of doing it. So you can use your calculator. Most of the the current calculators, you can put that into the calculator. I just thought, okay, but let's show another way that you can do it. So how this would have been done with the log definition is log of what is in the brackets. So log of what's in the brackets, that should not be 3, it should be 7. Divided by log 3. So this is the log rules, but a lot of the current calculators now, you sometimes have the ability to already put that into the calculator. So if you didn't have a calculator like that, what you can follow is just the normal log rules to it. So then it will be 1073 divided by 7, which is 153 point something. But then you need to take the log of that. So I'm just going to check where on my calculator is that. So the top will be 5,0323. I see, so interesting. That is already one of your answers there. So again, just be wary if you work out in the exam that you don't just quickly assume that is then the answer. And if you take log 3, that is 1,0986. And if I divide the two with one another, you get 4,5806. Okay, which is, so if I round that then off to what they're asking us for 3 decimals, it will be 581, which is option 2. So again, I just wanted to show you, if you get one of the logs and your scientific calculator can't use, if you can't put in there the 3 into the log, that the log rules are basically then log of what is in the bracket divided by log 3. Okay, and that all the calculators will be able to do. Okay, so they can, and I think what is important is just be wary that the calculator is set up that it's log 10. So that is what's nearly in the memory of a calculator, or in the calculator's function. So that is why if you can't change the 3, then you need to do this process. Okay, so that is just an example of log. So they started off with straight line, went into a log, and then suddenly they throw a third question at you that it is, so what is happening here? Okay, so let's look at what they are asking us. Um, it costs 250 to print a paperback book, and it costs R1 to bind each book. Okay, so then they tell us printing and binding setups are R1,000. These paperback books are sold to retailers for R4.75. Okay, this was ages ago. Find the number of paperback books that must be printed, bound, and sold to break even. Okay, so for something to break even, we need to find what is total cost equal to total revenue. Okay, so when total cost is equal to total revenue, that is when we have a break-even point. We don't lose money, we don't make money, but our business is, we are in business. So what is your total cost? So they tell us it costs R2.50. So let's first see, total cost must be your fixed cost plus your variable cost is your total cost. And that is still equal to your total revenue. So fixed cost plus your variable cost. Okay, so let's quickly check what do they give us. Fixed cost, they told us printing and binding setup cost are 1,000. So that is your fixed cost. And let's see what is your variable cost. It costs R2.50. So R2.50 per book to print, and it costs R1 to bind. Okay, so your variable cost is depending on how many books. It's R2.50 per book for printing and R1 per book or for binding. And when they say, well, your total revenue is you're going to sell these books for R4.75. You're going to sell this book for R4.75. And again, dependent on how many books you're going to sell. Okay, so from total cost to equal total revenue, we went to fixed costs plus variable cost to give you equal to total revenue. So let's see what is on the one side. It is 1,000 plus 3.5 Q. On the other side, 4.75 Q. Okay, so I'm going to take that over to that side. So we have 1,000 is equal to 1.25 Q. So 1,000 divided by 1.25 is equal to 800. And then you can see option 3 is equal to 800. What is interesting to note is the minus 800. You can't print and bound and sell negative products, so you can't have a negative amount of books. So that was probably to catch you out if somewhere here you might have made some or other signage issue, or I don't know, but yeah, the negative definitely will never happen. So Regional, you could have nearly said, okay, but let's eliminate the 800 or minus 800 because you can't produce negative amount of books. Okay, so this is a question on realizing that to get to total cost, you need to add the fixed cost with a variable cost. And then the other thing that they are testing in here is so that you know that when it's break even, that means that your total cost will be equal to your total revenue. Or your total cost, another way could have been to say where it's break even is when your total cost minus your total revenue is equal to 0. So basically, not making a profit, not making a loss. Okay, so that is a question on total cost and total revenue. And again, just to show for you guys also to just in the exam how, again, the question or the sequence of questions varies tremendously. So just, again, be prepared for it so that it not catch you by surprise. Okay. Now suddenly we go to a question that they tell you about demand and supply. So just again to the guys joining during this session, what we're doing is basically going through a previous exam paper, the June 2020 paper, and basically tonight and on Saturday we will go through all 30 questions of this paper. And I think it's a good prep for you guys as well to go through this. Okay, so now suddenly they give us a supply and demand function. So they tell us that we are working with a supply and demand. So you guys can tell me what is, if I look at that line 1, is it a supply or is it a demand function?
Supply.
Cool. Okay, so it's a supply function. So if I know that supply, this is demand. Okay, so let's first look at which one of the statements below is true. Okay, line 1 represents supply function, line 2 represents demand. Okay, so that was actually the easiest one to get. Let's just look at what all the other questions is asking us as well. Okay, so option 2 would have been correct. Let's just see then why these 3 are wrong. Okay, point A represents the break-even point. What is that point?
Equilibrium point.
Perfect. Awesome. So it's not break-even, it's equilibrium point. Okay, so that's why number 1 is wrong. Point B represents the minimum price consumers will pay. That's actually quite interesting. Is that the minimum price consumers will pay?
It is.
Okay, so let's just check the area of a triangle. ABC represents the consumer surplus. So let's see ABC, ABC. Okay, so what does that circle or sorry, that triangle represent? Is that
Shortage.
okay? So what is the minimum price that consumers will pay? I think this is nearly a trick question. So
It's B.
Isn't it on the other side? Because on the
Yeah,
demand function, it would show us what's the minimum consumers would pay. Because at what price is what demanded, right?
I think B is the minimum supply.
That's the minimum price that something would, well, that zero would be supplied at. But
yes, perfect. Okay, so just remember. So thanks for that nearly explanation. So what they wanted to catch you out is you see price, you see B on that, and then you think this is minimum price that, and it's not. Okay, so that thanks for that explanation from a 200 group as well. So very important, just those sneaky things that comes in, but you would have already stopped at 2 because you would have gotten that right. But just remember the other things why we actually would have eliminated as well. Okay, but please, in the exam, when you see you have that and you're happy with that, continue. Don't go to the others, because again, I think you guys have what, 2 hours, 2.5 hours to write. Was it free? I'm not was 100% sure how long, but it is around 30 questions that you're writing. So so it is quite a lot of questions in a small amount of time. Okay, so again, I just want to emphasize nearly the flow of questions is as random as anything, because now suddenly they give you a demand and supply function. Here they talked about break even point. We knew that it's not, it's equilibrium. So here they ask us, consider the market defined by the following two functions. You've got your demand function, you've got your supply, where P and Q are the price and quantity respectively. Calculate the equilibrium price and quantity. Okay, so if you go just quickly through the answers, 50, 50, 50, 50, 180, 200, 200, 180. So again, the question is going to be, when you work it out, make sure that if you work out Q, that you know you're working with Q, and if you work out P, know that you're working with P. Okay, so equilibrium price is where the two are the same. So we've seen it, it's basically that point. So we can say it is where the two are equal to one another. Okay, so then again, I want all the negatives, all the positives on the one side. So the minus 0.6 to that side will make it 0.8 Q. On this side, it will be minus 20. So 0.8 Q will be equal to 40. So Q will be equal to 50. Again, it's not P that's 50, it is Q that is 50. And then if I put 50 back into there, let's put it into that one. I would have, again, in my exam, I would have stopped here because I know now my Q is 50. If there was another Q that is 50, then I would have worked it out. But if I got here in the exam, I would have stopped just to save me time. But if I want to work out the Q, if there was, the P, if there was 2 Qs, I would have just then put it back into this function. And then 0.2 times 50 is 10. 10 plus 20 is 50. So there again, we see that it is option 1. Okay, but again, just tips. I would have stopped there. The reason again why I make it that P, I say this equal to that one, is because the P's was the same. If in my formula the Q's are similar, I would rather use Q. So again, use what will be the simplest or easiest way to get to your answer. If it was set up like this, if it was maybe set up like this, I would just have changed it that I work with the Q's and then work out the question. So just again, use what is easiest for you to get to the answers, so that you can save time. Okay. So question 5, nearly use something like this, and just ask it a bit differently. So basically, it asks us to in a sense work out that point. Okay, so we've now had the demand and supply function. We had it where it was in a graph. We had a log that we needed to do. Then suddenly they throw in a linear equation that is also looking as a inequality. Okay, so now we need to change this again a bit. So let's see. Let's just look at what they give us. They give us y bigger equal to 3 plus 3x. Okay, so sure. Okay, 3 1 3 minus 1. Okay, so let's just first write it as a normal mx plus c, so that we can see what we're working with. Okay, so if we write it like that, firstly, I can see that my y cutoff is going to be 3. Okay, so y cutoff 3, yes, so it might be that one. Y cutoff 1, not this one. Y cutoff 3 might be that one. Y cutoff 3 might be that one. Okay, so at least we've eliminated one of them. Okay, so then let's check if I put in y is equal to 0, what do I get? So y equal to 0 is 3x plus 3, so it must be, this is, so x will be equal to -1. Okay, so if I have the y equal to 0, so basically on that line, x must be equal to -1. Okay, so this one can be, that one is not, because it is +1, that one is not, so it's +1. Okay, so already now we have that, but then the other thing is that we can see the bigger. So that is also, and remember, when you look at this from the bigger, it is where this line is going through. Okay, so which means it can only be option 3. Okay, bit different to the other linear equations where you get 2 or 3 equations. That will still come later in the paper as well. But again, really working it out with eliminating some of the options. Okay, let's just happy until this, up until now. So I think again for your prep nearly for Tuesday, just be prepared to have things being shuffled around, the types of questions that you will get. Okay, then the next one that we're looking at now, suddenly consumer surplus. Okay, that was nearly towards chapter 5, 6 of, so going from nearly chapter 2 to chapter 5, 6. So they tell us the demand function of a certain product is that. Determine the consumer surplus of a product if a market price is equal to 90. Okay, so let's just assume, just assume that is a straight line. Okay, so let's say this is your 120 minus 3x or 3q in this instance. So we know that cutoff is 120. They tell us that determine the consumer surplus of a product if a price is 90. So at that point, we need to basically work out what is your consumer surplus. remember that part there is your consumer surplus that we need to work out. So consumer surplus, the formula for that again is your maths formula of a half times base, so whatever that length is, times height. Okay, so we have that, we don't have Q. Okay, or not yet. Okay, so how do we work out the value of Q? So we know that at price of 90, that value of Q will be calculated by this formula. Okay, so at 90, we can use that formula because we're basically putting that 90 into this to work out Q. So that goes over to that side. So minus 30 is equal to minus 3Q. So Q is equal to 10. And so we know now here it is 10. So that length is, if we say that is the base, that is 10. The height is the difference between 120 and 90, which is 50. So it's a half times 10 times 50. Okay, it's interesting. Okay, so let's just work that out. So it's 10 times 50 is 300, times a half is 150. Okay, so just look at where is your Q. So normally they will have that included there as well. The 90 is that we just replicated. Wonder how the 450, but we're not going to worry about how they calculated that. Okay, so consumer surplus, remember the formula of the half base times height. Some of the information they do give you, some of it you need to calculate, but they do give you the demand function to calculate the consumer surplus. They need to give you for your consumer surplus, they need to give you the demand function or give you something that you can work with. If they've given you the supply, it's very difficult then to, unless they give you more. So just important nearly is that to see it that way. They don't need to give you your supply function because they told you at what point it will be that you will be working with your consumer surplus. So that I think it is important that they've given you only a point that you can work with. You don't need everything to work it out. So just again, I think in some of the exercises we had the supply, we had the demand, we worked it out, everything nicely so that you can nearly get to the consumer surplus, but again, it can be worked out without your supply function. Okay, so that is when we look at the demand function, and they've asked us to work out consumer surplus. So once again, you will most likely get consumer or producer surplus for linear, and then in instances also for your non-linear or your quadratic or function. Okay, like this one. So basically, at least with this one, they gave it directly after. So okay, so let's see what they give us. The supply function, they tell us the supply function of a good is given by that. So it's a quadratic equation, and then they ask us determine the producer surplus if 10 units are supplied at Q equal to 10. I copied this in just to show you. So these numbers are not the numbers that we should use. So please let me just take that out. So I copied that just in so that we can see what we're working with and what we need to calculate. Okay, so they want us to determine the producer surplus if 10 units are supplied. So we would know that Q will be equal to 10. Okay, so if that Q is equal to 10, what will the price be? So what will be the easiest to work out the price of that?
Obtaining wherever Q is.
Perfect. Okay, so we haven't done anything to the equation yet. So first, to work out what the price is, we put 10 into that equation. So our price will be 10 to the power of 2 minus 2Q. So let's do that over again. I've got the 10. I can just as well put it in. Okay, so minus 2, okay, plus 12. So that is 100 minus the 20 plus the 12. If I work that out, I get price is 92. Okay, so price is 92. Okay, so what next? So I need to get that. I know how to get to the total block. So the total block will just be if I take that length times that length, so that total block will be equal to 920. Okay, so that total block, the area will be 920. Interesting that 920 is not one of these options. But what would we do now to calculate that space, or to say calculate the area that, and probably this area, and subtract it from a 920 to get the total area? Okay, any takers for this one? I think this is chapter 7 and 8. Okay, so chapter 7 and 8. So what we need to do is first integrate that formula. Then we're gonna replace it with the 10 and the 0. So let's quickly just do that. So what we are going to do, so if we integrate, when we differentiate it, we set -1, we take that to the front. So what we're now doing is we add 1 back. So it is 2 plus 1. And we divide by whatever that exponent is. So here normally was 1. So 1 plus 1 is 2. So let's just do that already as 3. And it is just easier for me to remember. Okay. So what we then do is that 2 stays there. But we divide by whatever is up there, plus 12q. So if there's no, remember q to 0 gives you the 1. So we basically have q1. Okay, and then what we will do is we will say that firstly, we'll put in 10 and it goes to 0. So we'll put in 10 to get what the value is, put in 0 to get what the other value is. And that we will basically then subtract from 920. So whatever this gives us, because it will be equal to this thing here at the bottom. Okay, so let's quickly, all the easiest is to put in 0. I think it's gonna be probably in 0. But let's put in 10. So 10 to the power of 3 divided by 3 minus 2, 10 to the power of, okay, so that we could have cancelled out as well. So can do that. Plus 2 times 10. So what we would have done is to say minus whatever is in this bottom part. So if here was 1, we would have put in 1, so then it would have gone through that point. It would have been just a bit, so just imagine it going through 1. Since it's not going through 1, it's going through 0, so our point is going through 0. If I put in 0 there, 0 to the power of 3 is 0, so that's not going to make a difference. 0 to the power of 2 is 0, it stays 0. 0 to the power of 1 is 0, so what actually we're subtracting there is 0. If it was 1, it would have been different. Okay, so 10 to the power of 3 is 1,000. So 1,000 divided by 3 minus 10 to the power of 2 is 100, plus 12 times 10 is 120. So let's see what that is. So 1,000 divided by 3 is 353.3. And then plus 20, because 120 minus 100 is 20. So we've got 353.33. Okay, which C is that, but remember this space, what we calculated, is only looking at this area underneath the graph. Okay, so it's not that. So 920 minus the 353, and that will give you 566.69. So 920 minus 353 gives you the 566.7 67. If you added the 2, you would have gotten option 4. Okay, so just again to make sure that, so if you added the 2 values, you would have gotten option 4 as your answer. So again, very important when you do this. That's why I nearly copied this in from the start. So if you see in the exam that you need to do produce a surplus, draw from the beginning, draw what you need to look at. It's, yeah, I think if I can't nearly work without visually seeing what I actually need to get to, because in the end, and this happens in a lot of decision sciences subjects, is at nearly each point there is one of the options is in your answer set. So at this point there was an option. So if you added that to that, there's an option. So just from that point, nearly much easier to draw it and then nearly work towards that answer. But yeah, this is probably one of the, well, second most difficult questions probably from the other integration. There might be a few, one or two more difficult integration questions, but in here now you needed to integrate. So yeah, questions on up until question 8 nearly. Again, if you in the exam, I think you're allowed to go back to, I think you download your paper. And so what I would do if I was you, and you can download the whole paper, nearly search through the paper for the easiest ones first, the things that because this is definitely not one of the easier ones. Okay, so so they throw in this difficult one, and then suddenly the next one they ask you, find the equilibrium price and quantity for the demand and supply functions. Okay, so what would you do in this instance?
To make them equal each other and then
Okay.
work out P and Q.
Perfect. So again, we're going to basically work out that point. So from really difficult to one of your simpler ones that was way at the beginning of your, at chapter 2 nearly. So it's what they also sometimes try to do is to nearly, what's the right word, not upset, not, but nearly to play on your nerves, because now you're looking at this and you're like, can it be that simple? Is there not a catch in it? But this is as simple as you were looking for the equilibrium price. You basically just say the one formula must be equal to the other one. Again, if I look at options here, there's a few that already tells me there is some overlap, and just be careful when you work it out that there's nothing else nearly. Okay, so nothing that I can eliminate from the start. Okay, so again, I want to have it easier, so all the p's on one side where it's all positive. So if I take that over to this side, it's 3 plus 2, it's 5p. If I take the 4 over to this side, it's 24 minus 4, which is 20. So p is equal to 4. Okay, so there's only one where p is equal to 4. Okay, option 1. If I needed to, if there was another one where it was 4, I would then just put the 4 back in there. I would just put the 4 back into that formula, so that your Q is equal to 4 plus 2 times 4, which is 4 plus 8, which is 12, which then do correspond to that as well. Okay, so this one, straightforward equilibrium. You know that when you work with equilibrium, you can say the demand function is equal to the supply function. You work out your p-value, you work out your q, and that is then what your option set is. I would have thought it was between 3 and 4, so they would have gotten me if I needed to guess at this stage. Okay, so again, just reiterating from very difficult nearly to the opposite. So just again, be careful that don't try to overthink some of the questions as well. Okay, so now we go back to again chapter 2, 3, where we're looking at linear equations. We're looking at what total revenue is, total cost profit functions. So in this one, they don't give us any diagram to look at. They don't give us anything else. They just tell us a company produces Q solar lamps. Okay, this was ages ago. Somebody predicted, obviously, that we will have issues. A company produces Q solar lamps at a fixed cost of 5,000 per week and a variable cost of 150 per lamp. Each lamp is sold for 300 rands. Okay, so for me, the easiest one first is total revenue. So total revenue is how much I will get in. So it will be 300 Q. Okay, so total revenue is basically you will sell it for 300 rand. However, how much you will sell, that will be your total revenue. So if I now look at these options, that can happen. Total revenue of 150, no. Total revenue of 300 can happen. Total revenue of 150 minus, nope. Okay, so they actually want to confuse us with other formulas in there. So at this stage, we basically have that one and that one that we can work with. Okay, so that was total revenue. Okay, total cost. So we have seen in one of the previous questions as well. Remember, total cost is fixed cost plus variable cost. Okay, so total cost is, they told us a company produces Q solar lamps at a fixed cost of 5,000 plus a variable cost of 150. Okay, so 150 Q. Okay, so let's see. Fixed cost plus variable cost, 150. Oh, this is interesting. Okay, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. Total cost 150 plus 500. Okay, cool. Okay, can you guys still hear me? This. Okay, cool. So there's the total cost one. Let's look at option 3. Okay, minus, it must be positive. So at this stage, I could also have eliminated option 3. But then if we need to work out the profit function, we know the profit function is basically equal to total revenue minus total cost. Total revenue was with 300 Q minus total cost. So let's just do it in that. Formula that we have it as is. So that's your 300 Q minus 150. Okay, so that is where some of the things came in with a minus 500. And that then is 150 Q minus 500. So if 5,000. So if you still needed to work that out, there it is. So we're still happy with option 1. But again, I like to, again, basically, for me, always the easiest one is nearly to work out total revenue. And by that, I actually have eliminated 2 options. And then go with total cost. And lastly, I will work out what your total profit is if you still need to work that out. Okay. So they tell us question 11 is also based on this information. Okay, so they probably now will give us a point. So let's just remember your total profit was 150Q minus 5,000. They probably will. Okay. How many lamps were produced and sold if they made a loss of 2,000? Okay, so your profit function was this. So if you, and this is now unfortunate, so if you had this wrong, you will get question 11 wrong as well. So if your profit function was wrong, your answer to this will also be wrong. So unfortunately there you will nearly then lose double points. Okay, make a loss. So a loss is minus 2,000. So a loss of 2,000 is minus 2,000. So 150Q, if that goes over to that side, it becomes plus 5,000. 5,000 minus 2,000 is 3,000. So if I then work out Q, 3,000 divided by 150 would give me 20. Okay, which is option 1. If you set 150Q minus 5,000 is equal to 2,000. So let's just say you did not add the loss in there. You would have said that 150 is equal to 7,000. So 7,000 divided by 150 would have given you 47. Okay, so again, if you worked with actually the positive 2,000, where it was when a profit, there would have been an answer for you as well. So again, just be on the lookout for when they specifically say loss instead of minus 2,000, so that one can nearly just be caught off guard as well. So question 11 nearly flowing from question 10 on the profit. Okay, so going from total revenue, total cost, profit into working out the profit into linear equations or linear programming. So once again, nearly, yes, there's 4 things that they tell us about these graphs. So let's again firstly use the x bigger than 0, y bigger than 0. That for me is always the first one that I will go to. So if I look at that, okay, that tells me y must be bigger than 0. Okay, so that already tells me that part must not be there. X must be bigger than 0. Okay, so that part must also not be there. So I can already, by just looking at that option, the fourth one, I can already eliminate option 1. Okay, then let's look at that first equation. So, and let's nearly write it out already as how it will look like. So y smaller or equal to minus x plus 13. Okay, so then if I put in 0x as 0, y would be equal to 13. So if x is 0, y is 13. Okay, so that is right. X0, Y13. Okay, so all of those are right so far. If X or if Y was 0, then X would also be 13. So let's just check. Okay, that's 13. So that line is a correct line. That line is a correct line. That line is a correct one. And that one is correct. But it must be smaller or equal to. So it must lie on this side of a line. This side of a line. This side of a line. Okay, so by that, because that is not on this side, can eliminate option 2. Okay, so unfortunately we still sit with 2 options. Which one is easiest to work with? I would probably have said I would first want to work with that one because it's positive still. So let's work with line 3. So y would still be equal to smaller than, okay, so let's 2x will become positive on this side, but we will divide by 3. And then the 12 will stay on this side. Divide 12 by the 3. That is plus 4. Okay, so let's just look. Plus 4. Plus 4. Okay, so those two are still right. So I need to work out what the x is. If y is 0, so if y is 0, we have 2x over 3 plus 4. So that will go over to there. So it is 2x over 3 will be equal to minus 4. Minus 4 times 3 will be minus 12. Minus 12 divided by 2 will then be equal to minus 6. So my x must be minus 6. That is right. So that line is right. Okay, so that line is also right. It should be smaller or equal to. Okay, so it needs to be to this side. That's still right. Needs to be to this side. Okay, so that can also still be right. Okay, that didn't really help. Okay, so nearly line 3 is, yeah, it didn't really add any value yet. Okay, so then line 2. Okay, so let's quickly see if I can just work out line 2 here. So we've got 2x minus y smaller equal to 8. Minus y smaller or equal to minus 2x plus 8. Okay, so I want to change the sign of a y. So I multiply by minus 1. When I multiply by minus 1, the rule is that my inequality needs to swap around. So now suddenly your y is bigger or equal to 2x minus 8. So let's again look at equations. There's minus 8. There's minus 8. Should be bigger or equal to that one. Okay, so not that one. Bigger or equal to. Okay, so option 3 is the correct one. Okay, so yeah, sure. The important thing here is when we're working with equation 2, that when you change the sign of the y, you need to remember to also change the direction of your inequality. If it stayed like that, we would have gone for option 4. So very important to change that direction of the inequality. Okay, questions on this or up until now? Again, it is nearly the questions are not in a very systematic order. So so again, if possible, like in your mock exam where you can see beforehand what the questions are, I'll again look at it and pick the ones that I know nearly fits together to answer first. Okay, so this one with the inequalities, there's no really easy way to do it, but to go through each inequality and nearly see what the impact of that inequality is on your diagram. Okay, next one. So in question 13, now we go from yes, question or just is there a question? Okay, no. Okay, so yes, there is a possibility that you can get questions that are similar to the mock exam. Were you forced to do the mock exam? So were you actually forced to do the mock exam? That's quite interesting. Okay, so what can happen is that you get similar questions, just different numbers. Oh, that is quite interesting that the mock exam is now part of your pre-exam mock. Okay, that is fascinating actually. Okay. So they force you in that way to do it. Okay, so definitely it's a possibility that you might get one or two of your mock exam questions in your exam. Might even be some of your previous assignments as well. What also can happen is that they just change some of the numbers in some of the questions. So that can also happen. Okay, so if Robin, that you now mentioned that there was an optional 6 assignment, look at, so guys, if you can look at it, please, even if it is just to, if it's still available. So I don't even know if it's still available to you, but if it is available, look at that 6 assignment. Because it can be, okay. If anybody have done the 6 assignment and have anything that they can send me, please do that as well. Because it might be even that from that 6 assignment there is, yeah, they normally, and that's why I said on the mock exam, so they sometimes do use the things that you not needed to do and take one or two of those questions out of that again. So if anybody have access to that 6 assignment that you didn't need to do, please send to me or send to the group or send to the WhatsApp again. So again, if anybody is new on the group, please send me still a WhatsApp on 0837908387. Even if I know that you weren't allowed to take pictures of things, but if you did, I won't tell anybody. That one can maybe see one or two of those. But if anybody have access to that one that you didn't need to do, let's see if we can circulate that. Also, what I would do if, let me check if I have some extra old exam papers, and I will put that maybe even in this chat, but I'll also put that onto our WhatsApp group. And it just, a lot of the questions, or not a lot of the questions, but it circulates. So you can just ask so many questions on certain things, and it is easier to just circulate some of the answers. So I will see if I also have some previous exam papers that I can share with you guys. Okay, question 13. So if a demand function is equal to this, where P is equal to, okay, so please send some of those mock exam questions. I think that would be great. You can send it to me or onto the WhatsApp. And if there was some of those mock exam questions that you were struggling with, we can also include that maybe still in Saturday's session. So happy to do that. Okay, so we've got the demand function with P and Q, the price and quantity respectively. Determine price elasticity of demand if a price is equal to P equal to 10. Okay, so price elasticity of demand. So we've got nearly that. Oof, I'm now writing very, very big here. Okay, so we've got that formula. So price elasticity is and when your Q will be 70. So remember, again, if we look at the demand and supply function, where your cutoff will be. So also interestingly, when we looked at what was it, question 3, we had that supply and demand. So here you have the demand function. So remember that price is where Q is 0, so that is that. So 10 minus 70 is minus 60. Just check. So 10 minus 60. Sorry, divided by 60 is minus 0.1667. So we round off to 3. Okay, minus 1.67. Okay, option 4. How did I get to for one? Probably, yeah. Okay, so but one can just use the price elasticity of demand function, and then just remember they give you that demand function, and again draw it for yourself nearly that you can see. Okay, well, there it is, so that I can use that. Okay. Okay, so now they're going into a bit of more difficult elasticity, inelasticity. So they give you the demand function. Okay, so this is quite a different function that we have here, where P is for price, Q is for quantity. Find the price elasticity of demand at Q equal to 2 and say whether demand is elastic or inelastic at this level of output. Justify your answer well. Okay, so firstly, before that I added that you will not that they will not give you that in the exam, so that I just added to assist you. But the first thing that I normally do is I draw a diagram, and nearly from a definition in again chapter 3 or 4, I think they told us if it is bigger than 1, it's elastic. If it is smaller than -1, it is elastic. if it is between those two, it is inelastic. So what I normally do is first, okay, yes, there's answers that we need to work through, but if it is smaller than -1, it's elastic. So let's just, okay, minus 0.185, so it will be between those two, so it will be inelastic, so that can be an option. Minus 0.714, it's in those two, so it needs to be inelastic. Okay, so it can be that one. Minus 1.4, okay, minus it is elastic. Okay, so this is not going to help me at all. Minus 5.4, it must be elastic. Okay, so at least one of them I was able to eliminate, because the minus 5.4 must also be elastic. So at least option 4 I have excluded before we needed to work out anything. Okay, so now what do we need to do? So again, in your study guide textbook, your study guide chapters 7, 8, they give us a way of calculating the elasticity of demand. So we need to basically differentiate. So now we go back to, what was it, chapter 4, 5. How do we work with that? Okay, so you just need to, again, now we need to think about, you bring that to the front. And the rest stays the same again. Wait, there was, they give us Q, so we can remember when you look at the if, I think we did it last week, when we looked at differentiation and those kind of things with the E, what happens with it. So they need to give you that Q, or they could have given you the P as well, but they need to give you one of those two. So the same year where they give us the P as 10, they need to give you a P or a Q value. They can't not give you that, because you need that to put it into the formula. So in this instance, they gave us the Q. In this instance, they gave us the P value. So just again, you can use, they can give you any one of the options. Okay, so it's 44. Okay, so let's just, so 44 times 0.7. We'll put in the negative now, so that is negative 30.8. E to the power of 0.7 times 2, so it is just now need to look on my calculator, and it is load shedding, so it's very dark. So I get, so let's just do that. So by working that out, zero 0.2466. So I get minus 7,5952. And so we have that, but now we still need to multiply out by, so I've got that divided by that, sorry. Looking at that one. So 1 divided by, so I still now need to add more to that. There should be an easier answer to this. Okay, what am I missing here? Got that sorted out. Ah, another one that I need to work out. So if I put in Q there, okay, so I still needed to put Q in there. So that to get the P, so the P you need to, so this is really a long, and Q is 2. And so I now did that part was done here. Now I still need to do that part. So in the exam, sure, I would have probably guessed 3. I would have probably been wrong. So let me just write this part over again. It's minus 7,5952. When I work out 44 e to the power of minus 1,4, I get 10,8503, which I need to divide by the Q still. So if I have that nearly 10.8 divided by around 14. My answer, and you can check on your calculators, will be 0.7143. Which is option 2. Okay, so I would have guessed wrong. This is really a long problem to solve, which I would probably have left until last if you were doing this in the exam. So you nearly need to, this is really a long method of doing it. Yeah, I don't know. Is there any other shortcuts to this that you guys can think of? I don't know if some of your calculators will even be able to do a shortcut on this. Yeah, this is really, really a long for a question of this and this that counts exactly the same. Probably, yeah. I would have kept this one till last nearly in the exam if I were you, because yeah, it is quite a lot. So you need to remember the differentiation rules of when you're dealing with E. Then you nearly needed to remember again that you need to multiply it by the price. The price is in that function. And normally that would be fine if it was not a E function, your P and Q would probably have cancelled out if it was a normal function. But because of that being to the power of it, it creates nearly that extra level of dynamica in here that really makes it difficult. Yeah. Was there something like this in the mock exam for you guys? This level of complexity, or not really?
I would say yes.
Okay.
There were
Okay,
a few
so
questions that were long like this.
yeah,
I sent
okay.
you questions 1, the assignments 1 to 4, and then my assignment 5. I emailed that to you tonight, sorry. And
Okay.
you'll see they are pretty much, most of them were like this.
Okay. See, so again, nearly when you do the exam, I'll again do the ones that are quicker, that because you elasticities will take some time. Then if you see this type of formula that you need to work with, I move personally, I would have moved this to the last question that I nearly do, unless there's integration, and that's probably what you will do as well, is integration probably totally last, and then maybe this before for the integration questions. Okay, so let's look at another one. So you would also have seen with your linear equations, sometimes they ask you to work out x, y, and z. In this instance, they ask you to work out the sum of x, y, and z. So now it's not as simple as when you suddenly have an X value, you can nearly say, well, I don't have any of the others, so I can just get to an answer. Does some of your calculators allow you to do this on the calculator? If it can, I would definitely prescribe that if your calculator can do it, do it. Else it is basically the old method of let's see how we nearly get to it. So let's see what will be the easiest to get the answer to this is if I look at these two. So again, I just want to write some of these over that one, have everything below each other. So here we have X. Here we don't have. Okay, so this is an interesting one. I would probably have quickly see that these two looks very funny to work with. But let's first create. So what I would have done is I would have first worked with those two. And then I would have said, okay, that minus that gives me 0. That minus that gives me minus y. That minus that just gives me plus 3z. That minus that gives me 6. So there I have an equation that is when 3z minus 6 is equal to y. So I take that to that side, I bring this over to this side. But up there I also have y is equal to z. So I will then substitute it in there. So then I can say 3z minus 6 is equal to z. So z comes to this side. So 2z, it's just if that is even better. 2z is equal to 6, so z is equal to 3. We know from that one, so if z is 3, y is also 3. And then we can put in y into that formula. So x plus 0, so x is equal to minus 9. So the sum of those three is minus 9 1 plus 3 plus 3 is equal to minus 3, which is that one which I would not have gone for at all because it's negative. Yeah, so shoot, this is quite interesting how you need to find nearly a set of equations that might work easiest for you. Yeah, can some of your calculators calculate this or not really?
Mine doesn't. I use a Excel or an online calculator usually.
Yeah, I see. So okay, so use some of our online calculators then to do this. Yeah, I would have probably excluded the minus 3 as an option if I needed to cancel things out, because I would just have thought that it must be a positive answer. Okay, so that's halfway through the mock or the exam paper of 2020. We will continue on Saturday, and I'm also just putting in the chat that Saturday, so you can use the same link if it's not sent out, please, because there are some problems during load shedding with the links not always being sent out or not being so Saturday from 9 to 11 will be our next session, and we will definitely finish then with this, because now again you'll see that they jump from something like this to expression that you need to simplify. So we will start off with that on Saturday. But please, yeah, send me mock exams, send me any of the assignments. Yes, question.
I just wanted to ask, is it going to be in the morning or in the afternoon?
In the morning from 9 to 11, but I also will record it again as well. So if
Okay.
you can't make it, I will definitely record it. Also for you guys, because there's sometimes a delay for UNISA to put it onto their website, what I will do is, and let me just stop the recording.